I saw the live-action Little Mermaid in theaters this last weekend, and I think you should too. Stay tuned to This, That, and Theology and find out why. Hi, you're watching This, That, and Theology, where we help you apply your worldview in the world around you. Disney has made yet another live-action version of one of their classic animated films, The Little Mermaid. It just came out this last weekend. I went into the movie theater not really expecting to be impressed. I've kind of found out that these live-action versions of Disney films are either really good and add something new to the storytelling, or they just are a rehash, or, if even worse, they completely miss the boat on what made the original film so enchanting. When you start messing with a classic, I always wonder, is this going to be any better? And from a worldview perspective, are they going to change some of the messaging that was found in the original film, or would they remember what was in the original fairy tale? Believe it or not, The Little Mermaid came out in 1989, nearly 35 years ago. And a lot has changed in the world and the culture. One of the big questions that we were hoping to have answered as we walked into the movie theater was, are they going to reflect modern culture and modern social implications, or are they going to stay true to some of the spirit of fun of the original? Not that the original didn't have some of its own problems. One of the concerns you have with the original Little Mermaid is that she sacrifices quite a lot in order to chase after, basically, a crush. It's a 16-year-old girl who is rebellious against her father and then gives everything away just so that she could go to land in a world that she really knows very little about. To be honest, if you got all of your information on the human world from a seagull, you probably have a few things wrong too. The live-action version of Little Mermaid is almost an hour longer than the original, which gives them an opportunity to bring some real depth to some of the characters. For instance, in the original film, when we saw King Triton overreact to Ariel's disobedience, destroying her grotto of all of her collectible things, there's no context to why he might react so strongly. There are things in all of our lives, all of our stories, that make us react stronger than we think we should. And for King Triton, his wife was killed by a human. One of the most interesting lines to come out of that film is that Ariel says, one man did a bad thing. You can't blame all of them for it. Something that seems out of place for the 21st century, but certainly rings true. We start to see that King Triton's fears are justified, and the restrictive rules that he has are in place because he understands the danger that his children do not, and he expects them to obey. In the film, King Triton very clearly says, you disobeyed, and there are consequences for disobedience. Far too often in this modern era that we live in, there's not a clear understanding that our actions have consequences. As you watch this film, you see that every action Ariel takes has a consequence. Even though she may have been justified in wanting to save the life of this person, to do so meant disobeying, and disobeying has its consequence. Far too often in our modern culture, we think that we can get away with sin because we didn't understand the rules, or we have a justifiable reason for it. We understand that from a biblical worldview, everyone has sinned, and that there is a consequence for that sin. And the great story of the gospel is that Jesus paid the price. He took the consequence of our sin. And that is why we are able to have a relationship with God. I actually really like the new songs that are in The Little Mermaid. In fact, I've been humming some of them for the last 4 days because they kind of get stuck in your head. The prince, Eric, is a much deeper character. And through dialogue and through his songs, we're able to understand not only why he might be attractive to an adventurous person like Ariel, we also start to sympathize with his desire to see what's beyond the horizon. He's someone that not only Ariel, but all of us could look up to because his personality and his convictions are such that we want Eric to succeed. We see his desire to help his kingdom by connecting with the outside world. Something that is attractive to Ariel and kind of explains why she might give up so much to be with him. Speaking of giving things up, one of the things that happens in the original film with Ariel losing her voice is that we don't get to hear what she might be thinking. In fact, the way she behaves through much of the film, she seems almost flippant, like it really wasn't that big of a deal. In this film, we get to see Ariel's inner voice. The song that she sings for the first time is fantastic for doing this. At the beginning of the song, she's singing about how she's experiencing the world on dry land for the first time. She's experiencing gravity for the first time. But after she meets the prince and she realizes that she can't speak, that she can't tell him who she is experiencing the gravity of what she has done. There's actually a moment of regret where she realizes that in order to achieve what she was hoping to do, it's cost her far more than she thought it would. So too, in a biblical worldview, do we understand that sin always costs more than we think it does. Part of the allure of sin is that we are deceived to believe that it's really not that bad, that the consequences won't be so significant. For Ariel, she realizes the cost of what she's done all too late. The Little Mermaid is not without its flaws, but aside from not necessarily feeling like it is under the water, it was an entirely enjoyable experience. And even though there are some times when it's almost a shot-for-shot recreation of the original film, this is one of those films that tells something new, that explores some ideas that were barely touched on in the original film. I think you should go see this film. The worldview that is represented throughout the movie is something that you can talk positively about with your children and with your friends. And for those of you who saw the original film, there's certainly plenty to talk about what might be better in the original and in the new one. Surprisingly, there's no socially progressive messaging in this film. There are no immediately evident LGBT characters or messaging that might promote that. Some people have remarked that all of the daughters of Triton look to be different ethnicities. And that is true, but there is a good reason for it. Now, each of the 7 daughters represent each of the 7 seas, and Ariel represents the Caribbean, which makes sense as you see the ethnic diversity that would have been in the Caribbean at that time. Once you understand that, it makes sense. Even if it's a change, I think it's a good one. I took my teenage daughter to see it, who loves The Little Mermaid. It's her favorite film, and we both had a blast. I told you at the beginning of the video I didn't have high expectations, but even if I had, this movie met them. As the summer movie season starts with Little Mermaid this last weekend, I think you should support movies like this, because we can be sure that in the coming weeks and months there are going to be plenty of things that we won't be talking quite so positively about here on This, That, and Theology. If you've liked this video and it's been helpful, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with people who might find it helpful. Leave a comment below if there's something you'd like to see. And we'll see you next time right here on This, That, and Theology.
He's a human. You're a mermaid.
That doesn't make us enemies.